All right, algebraic reasoning. We are going to be working on a new website called Formative, and this Formative is going to be the format for using our tests, or sorry, doing our tests in the future. So we're going to get a trial run doing our review. And so this is Roro, and I are here to help you out with going over this review. So we want you to try it on your own first, see what you know, and then we're gonna go over it right here, all through it, just to make sure that you have the right answers and you have an explanation. Okay. Um, the Khan Academy assignments should have touched on all of these topics, and we're here to also fill in the gaps and offer additional assistance with understanding these topics because you'll need to know these for your first test for algebraic reasoning. So without further ado, let's do this. All right, so when you are working on your review, you want to go to the Go Formative website. You should have gotten an invite. It's connected to our Google Classroom. And when you go in, you probably see something like this, AR Unit 1 Review. So you want to open that up and you want to get started. And here's our very first question. All right, so the first question says, use the graph below to answer questions 1 and 2. So when we get to number 2, remember, we're going to look at this graph to answer it. But let's make sure we always read the entire problem. It says, the graph below shows why the number of gallons of gas left in a 10-gallon gas tank of a car that is driven X miles. Okay, so up and down, this is the y-axis. It's talking about gallons of gas, right? And they said it's a 10-gallon gas tank. Obviously, right here, it's a full tank of gas, right? The X independent horizontal axis is labeled as miles. That's how many miles we are traveling along the trip here. So you can see this is a linear graph. It makes a straight line, right? Linear makes a straight line.
Because there's the word line right there. Some people pronounce it linear.
Linear. That's good.
But it's line.
Line. All right, so first question, use the image above. Okay, ask what's the range of the line segment. Enter your answer in interval notation. Okay, now let's take a quick review over domain and range. Okay, domain and range. All right, Miss Murrow, domain is always what?
Domain is always the x-axis.
X. Now, which way is X?
X runs left to right horizontally.
That's very good. Now, so you got to know this. That domain. Oh my gosh, I'm spelling.
Just make that I and L.
I was spelling
Yes.
funny. Horizontally, right?
Yes.
Okay, so domain is left to right. Always start from the left to the right. Left to the right, like you're reading. Okay, and that's what horizontally means. And it's X,
Like the horizon.
like a horizon. All right, now range is what?
The range goes up and down, north and south. That's the y-axis.
We always start which way?
Down to up.
So from south to north, from bottom to top. It's kind of like when you wake up in the morning, you're starting down and you got to rise up for your range. You go up from bottom to top. Okay. So again, range is from bottom to top. What's the word for that one?
Vertically.
Okay, vertical. Vertically. All right. So these are things you should have already known. Vertical, up and down. Horizontal, like the horizon, left to right. So these are things that you should have already learned before, and we're just going over it. So you got to know domain, left to right, left, right. Range, bottom to top. All right. Now that's just a quick little review. So what was the question again? It says use the image above. What is the range of the line segment? Range means what again?
What does range mean, Mr. Gonzalez?
From bottom to top. Okay. Don't go top to bottom. That would be backwards, right? So when I'm thinking range and I'm thinking the y-axis, I'm going to look at these vertical. Oh, look at that, it's bigger. We're going to look at the vertical. So how far down does this go? Now, maybe you can see this arrowhead down here. That is right here on the y-axis. What is that y value at the bottom there?
What you could do, all the answers are on the line, but you make, since we're talking about range, you're going to make the very bottom of the line of the answer stretch all the way to the y-axis. So when you stretch it all the way to the y-axis, you're reading the y numbers, not the x numbers.
And that's on the vertical line, the y-axis. So right here we have a 0 at the bottom.
It's understood in the corner.
And then at the top, we know it's a 10-gallon tank, and we can see between 9 and 11, that has to be 10. So we're going on the range from 0 up to 10. All right? Now here's the question. How do you write interval notation? I'm glad you asked. Let's see if I can add an image. That's a great question. Whoa. Whoa. All right. Interval notation, okay? Let me actually get my pen here. All right. Interval notation. All right. So interval notation is either going to have parentheses or brackets. And you're going to put the least value to the greatest value. Okay? Now, the parentheses do not include the endpoints. No endpoints. But brackets like this are inclusive. They have the endpoints. Now, if I'm looking at a graph, how would I know whether they have endpoints or not? Whoops. Okay, so here's an example of a graph, okay? And it's going to be hard to draw, but I'm going to try it. Let's say one of my endpoints is a little open circle. One of my other endpoints has a closed circle. I know that's really ugly, so just forgive me, okay? Okay, in that graph, this open circle, and let's say I'm doing domain. Let's say that's -3. And then let's say this is +4. If I was doing the domain of this graph over here, if I'm going from left to right, do you see how on the left it's an open circle? I would have to use a parentheses, open circle. It's not included. That's -3. And then on the very right, it's a closed circle. So I would put the x value 4. But since it's a closed circle, I have to use brackets. That's an example of interval notation, okay? Now, on the example we were just doing, if you see something like this, okay, and maybe there's not a big bold endpoint, those are definitely going to be brackets, okay? So let's bring it back to our problem, okay? On our problem, the endpoint on the left, on the bottom, let me move that. There is no open circle on the bottom. There's no open circle on the top. Those are going to be inclusive, so we're going to have to use brackets, okay? And from bottom to top, that's from 0 up to 10. So when I type my answer, I'm going to put bracket, and you know where the bracket is, hopefully. For me, it's next to the letter P. Bracket, 0, comma, 10, bracket. All right. So that's how you figure out interval notation. If there's no open circles, then you use brackets. If there are open circles, you use parentheses. Now the question here is, what do the domain and range in question 1 represent in the real world? We need to go to the real world, okay? So remember, domain is what?
Is the x or the x's.
And range is the y's. So now, when it says what does the domain mean, I'm thinking x is left to right. So look at this axis, the x-axis from left to right. It tells you right there, it's labeled. What does that say? Miles, right? So what does the domain mean in the real world? And look at my complete sentence. The domain represents the number of miles driven. Isn't that a really nice complete sentence?
It's beautiful, Mr. Gonzalez.
What about the next one? The range represents, now Ms. Moreira, how would I find out what the range represents? By looking at this graph.
You look at the words to the left of the y-axis.
Yeah, because range is from bottom to top, so I see that I have labeled on that y-axis right there, number of gallons. So the range represents the number of gallons of what? Of gas, because we're driving. Cool? So this is an open-ended question, but you need to make sure that you answer it in a complete sentence. Don't just put miles. Don't just put gallons, okay? That's part of your answer, but a nice complete sentence, because we are trying to be well-rounded individuals, all right? Now, what is the range of the function? All right, so let's see here. All right, so we took that problem, and it says, what is the range of the function given the domain, okay? Now let's talk about this. It's asking what is the y, right? So remember, f of x, that's your y, given the domain when x is -3, -2, 0, 2, and 3. Now, there's ways to do this with a graphing calculator, but we're just going to do it the old-fashioned evaluation way, okay? So when they give you the domain, when they give you x values, you're going to replace right there. Replace that x value with all of those domains, and then tell me what you get for y, okay? So here's how I would write my work. F parentheses, the first one is -3. That means the function of -3, evaluating -3. So when I see x in the equation, I'm going to replace it with the parentheses -3. So 3 parentheses -3 minus 6. Okay. Now, you can use a calculator to do this. We're going to get through this a little faster. So 3 times -3, -9, -9 minus 6, -15. Cool. All right. The next one, f of, that's how you say it, f of, the next domain value is -2. So once again, I'm going to write this, evaluating it. 3x means 3 parentheses -2 minus 6. I'm just rewriting the function, and I'm replacing x with a parentheses -2. All right, now do the math. 3 times -2 is -6. -6 minus 6 is -12. Okay, now I'm going to do these next ones a little bit quicker because you get the idea. F of 0 means 3 times 0 minus 6, which is 0 minus 6, which is -6. Let's plug in 2. F of 2 means 3 times 2 minus 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. And then f of 3 means 3 times 3, which is 9, minus 6, which gives me 3. Now, if that is my domain, I plug them in and I get my ranges. I want to make sure I write the answer correctly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it. Let me move this down. I'm going to write my answer the same way they wrote the domain. So I'm going to have to use this weird looking bracket thing. Okay, so for a regular keyboard, you hit Shift bracket and it gives you that special bracket. Do you know the name of this bracket, Ms. Murrow? Okay, well the weirder bracket. There's probably a name for that. Half a guitar. So we're gonna put these ranges. This is all my range over here. Okay, so I'm gonna take those ranges and put them in numerical order, starting with -15, comma, space, -12, comma, space, -6, comma, space, 0, comma, space, 3, and you close that weird bracket. okay? So when we type our answer in, we want to make sure we type it in just like that. Okay, so let's do that. Again, shift bracket gives me the squiggly bracket. That's what I'm going to call it. Negative 15, comma, space. Negative 12, comma, space. Negative 6, comma, space. 0, comma, space. 3, and then end that bracket. Cool? All right. Now, we want to show our work for the above question either by drawing in the space below or uploading a picture. So that means you could write this on a piece of paper and upload a picture, or you can just write it on there. Okay, so what is the range of the function 3x minus f of x equals 3x minus 6 if the domain is negative 3, negative 2, 0, 2, and 3. Okay, now notice what I already did for the above question. They want to see the work. Okay, so what I can do, since I already did it over here, I can take a picture of this. And then, so however you did it, if you did it online, you want to make sure you get a screenshot of it. Okay, so I'm going to, let's see here. How do I save this? Export as an image. By the way, what I'm using right now is called Microsoft Whiteboard. You can try it, okay? And I'm going to call this AR review, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to go to show my work. I'm going to go to my computer where I saved it. I go to AR review, add that image, and boom, done. Okay, so that's one way to do it. If you did it by paper, you can take a picture of it and upload it. I do want to see your work. Okay. All right, use the following table to answer question number 5. So now we're looking at number 5. What is the domain represented in the table above? So, Ms. Marrero, if I'm looking at a table, what's the easiest way to tell the domain? Yeah, domain X. Range is Y, domain is X. So just vertically up and down. Here's my X. Boom. These are all of my X values, okay? Now, this might seem a little tricky, okay? Because what matters is the way we put our answer, okay? Now, Ms. Marrero, don't you think some students might want to put 3, -3, -1, -4 in that order?
Yes,
Why would that be wrong?
because we start with the lowest number and work towards the highest.
We always put domain and range from least to greatest, okay? Always from least to greatest. So let's talk about that domain. When we put our answer, put the squiggly bracket again. That's our fancy word. What's the smallest X value you see here? It's not 3, it's actually -4, comma, space. Now the next smallest one, it's not -1, it's -3, comma, space. Then it's -1, comma, space, and then 3. And squiggly bracket, okay? Make sure you put domain just like that, okay? And we are spacing between every time we hit a comma. If you don't put that space there, it might accidentally mark it wrong, so be careful of that. Number 6, what is the range of the graph shown below? Okay, now as you can see, this is a multiple choice question, and it's got interval notation. So range, once again, range means what?
Y axis.
And we do from what to what?
We go from the least or the lowest to the highest.
Yeah,
Yep.
least to greatest.
And make sure on the line that those are the answers. Everything on the line are the answers. And so since we're looking at the range, you make the lowest stretch all the way to the y-axis and see what number that is.
Now, Ms. Marrero, some people might think that this point on the left is the lowest because it's the most to the left, but we want to think instead
We want it to stretch to the y-axis
on the
because
bottom.
arrows to help you do remember this.
So this is our bottom point. That's as low as it goes. So right next to it is the y-axis. What is that y value right there? Well, that's 3 below the origin, 0, 0. So we're going to call that negative 3. So your range starts at negative 3. Now, how high does this go? Up here, this point right here at the top, if I go over to the right, the y value is at positive 3, right? So the range goes from at the bottom, negative 3, up to the top, positive 3. All right? So if I can get back to what I was looking at. There we go. Okay, so if I went from negative 3 to positive 3. Now, Ms. Marrero, real quick, those are filled in points. Does that mean we're going to use a bracket or a parentheses? Right. Open circles would be parentheses, but the closed circles are brackets. So bracket negative 3 to bracket positive 3. Now I'm looking at my answer choices. Which one is it? Well, clearly it has to be this one right here, right? If we're talking about the range, which we are, right? Now, these other distractors, negative 6 and 2, well, hey, that would be maybe the answer for domain, but please be careful. Domain is left and right, range is up and down, all right? Now, number 7, what's the domain? Now they're going to ask us the domain. All right, so let's go back to that. Ooh, where am I? Sorry. Okay, so now number 7 is asking using this graph. Now, Ms. Marrero, we see we have these open circles. What do I use for open circles, Ms. Marrero? You got to use parentheses, all right? So, and we're talking about what? Domain. So from left to right, right? Right. Because domain is x, domain is left to right. So look at this picture. Now, on the very left, I see this open circle at negative 5. Now I'm going to go all the way to the right. I see this point at positive 2 on the x-axis from left to right. So I know my answer, my number's got to be negative 5 and 2, but please remember, okay, that when I'm putting my answer, if they're open circles, I got negative 5, comma, space, 2. Since they're open circles, I have to use parentheses. Open circles means I have to use parentheses. Cool? So let's go back to our answers. Let's look at that multiple choice. Now, does everyone see the first one and the second one are slightly different? The first one has parentheses, the second one has brackets. We're not going to get confused. Open ends, open circles means parentheses, right? So we have to pick the first one, not the second one. That's a distractor. Okay. All right, next.
The parenthesis looks like a half a circle.
Yeah. All right, so this one you might need a calculator to help you with, and I'm going to let you know right now. There's a calculator that we use called Desmos. Okay. And I don't know if you have to sign up necessarily, but you can just click that graphing calculator and you can plug stuff in here. Okay, so we'll talk about Desmos, but that's it. Desmos.com/calculator is a calculator you can use for my class. Now, let's snip this real quick. All right, so there's our function, and we are going to evaluate it. So it's asking us what are the values of f of negative 2 and f of 5. Okay, so f of negative 2 equals, and in that equation, every time I see negative 2, I'm going to replace it. Sorry, every time I see x, I'm going to replace it with the number negative 2. So 2 parentheses negative 2 squared plus 5 parentheses negative 2 minus 9. Now, if you've got your own calculator, great, use it. But what I want to do is I want to use that, and I want to plug it into that Desmos calculator, okay? Because I want to be able to use desmos.com. So I'm going to go to desmos.com/calculator, and let's see here. I don't want a graph. I want a new. All right, one second. When you go to desmos.com, make sure you click Math Tools at the top, and then you're going to click scientific calculator. You don't want to be at that graph paper because we're not graphing stuff right now. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to type this in and see if it works. All right, so let's type it in here. So we're going to put 2 parentheses -2 parentheses squared plus 5 parentheses -2 parentheses minus 9. Hit enter. Actually, it's already there on the very right. -11. Okay. So I can go back to my work. I'm going to write -11. So you see how you can use the Desmos calculator to do this math for you. Now, if you have your own calculator, just make sure you type it in correctly. Those negatives can be kind of tricky. So we suggest desmos.com. All right, let's do the last one real quick. F of 5, the function evaluated at 5. Every time I see x, I'm going to replace it with the number 5. And we'll plug that in real quick. So let's go back to Desmos. So we're going to do 2 parentheses 5 squared plus 5 parentheses 5 minus 9. And I got 66. All right. So going back to our work, 66. So what are the values of f of -2? So I can say f parentheses -2 equals -11. F parentheses 5 equals 66. All right. And what do I want to do with that? I want to export that as an image. I can call that I can call that AR review 2. Call it whatever. Okay. And then on my Go Formative, show my work, I'm going to go to an image from my computer. I'm going to do AR review 2, adding that image so I can show my work to Mr. G so he knows it's legit. Okay. We're almost done. Number 9 and number 10. Use the function below to determine the value of f of 4. Okay. So once again, maybe Miss Morero can weigh in here. When I see number 9, I see a function and it says f parentheses 4. What am I going to do?
We'll notice that the 4 is inside the parenthesis. Down below, what is inside that parenthesis? An x. So you can substitute the 4 for the x. So when you have that x minus 3, it's really 4 minus 3.
And we can maybe even do this mentally, but we like to show our work just in case.
Truly.
Sometimes we might. So f of x is 2x. All right, let's see here. So let's write f of x equals, and what was it? 2x minus 3 plus 4, 2 parentheses x minus 3 parentheses plus 4. And we were going to do f of 4. That means f parentheses 4. Replace any x with the number 4. So right here where x would be, put a 4. Now, Miss Morero, if I was doing this, the easiest way is to always use the
calculator,
right, Desmos. You can just type that in, but you know, if we do want to encourage number sense, right? So y'all remember PEMDAS? So real quick, I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. P for parentheses. First, I'm going to do this. 4 minus 3 is 1, right? Then exponents, then multiplication, right? So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. So f of 4 equals 6, right? Yas. So using the function below, determine the value of f of 4. So when we are putting our answer, we want to make sure it looks right here, we put the number 6. All right. All right, your last question, number 10. How do you know if it's supposed to say relationship, not a relationship. That's a typo on our side. How do you know if a relationship is a function or not a function? Explain how you know for a graph, a table, or a set of points. Miss Marrera, tell me what you know about a function. What would you like to say?
I would like to sing a song, Mr. Gonzalez. Function has only one x. Do the vertical line test, especially if it's a graph. Do the vertical line test. If it's a bunch of points, do the vertical line test.
Very good, very good. So, something we have to remember about functions. Let's do a new one of these. Let's see if I can type. Yeah. Function. For a function, each input x has exactly one output y. So each x has only one y. Okay? So the question they had for us was, how do you know if a relationship is a function or not a function? To answer the question, sorry, how do you know if a relationship is a function or not a function? We just answered that right here. Let's copy that over. And then explain how you know for a graph. Okay, now everybody, on a graph, there's some test that we can tell if a graph is a function. Miss Marrero, what's the name of that test? Vertical line test. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Let's say I have a linear equation, and over here I'm gonna have like a sideways parabola. If you don't know what that is, you'll learn. All right, so I'm gonna, in green, do the vertical line test. Vertical line test says if I make a vertical line, how many times should it cross it? One time. If it only crosses one time, then that is a function. That was function. Right? But look at this one over here. If I draw a vertical line, it's going to cross once and then twice. That breaks or violates the vertical line test. If you can make a vertical line go through a function twice, sorry, it's not even a function. So if you can make a vertical line go through a graph twice, that is no fun. No function. Okay, so I hope y'all see. Oh, I lost what I was doing there. Isn't technology fun? Let me bring it back. Okay, so what I was trying to do was just to separate these two. Okay, so now you see in a graph the way it looks, right? Now, so let's answer this over here. How do you know for a graph? Use the vertical line test. If a vertical line intersects a graph more than once, it is not a function. That's one way to say it. Now a table and a set of points, okay? Now on a table, so let me move over here. All right, so for a table, now Miss Murrow can probably help us out here using the example I just used. Now we said that a function means for each x, there's only one y. So Miss Marrero, what's my way to tell if this is a function or not?
There are two ways. You look at just the x-axis and see if there are any repeating x's. If there are any repeating x's, then no, it's not a function.
All right, so let's look at this first one. I have 1, 2, 3, 1.
Oop, the ones are repeaters.
So look at that. That's a repeat. Now, if it repeats, I want to look at my y values. Are the y values different?
Yes.
So 1 and 2, 1 and 5. That is not a function. No fun. Okay. What about the second one? Well, all my x values are 1, 2, 3, 4. The x does not repeat. That's a function. Lots of fun.
That's right.
So, everybody, you're looking to see if you have the same x giving you two different y's, okay? So let's answer that real quick, type it out here. If the table repeats an x value with different y values, it is not a function. All right, last but not least, a set of points. Okay, now, do they mean a set of points on a graph? If they mean on a graph, use the vertical line test. Okay, but if they're just saying a set of points like this, all right, Miss Marrero, looking at these points, this is our last one. How do I tell if this is a function?
You look at the x's,
Just like the table?
just like the table.
Oh, one,
Circle, what I like to do
5.
is circle them, because then my eyes focus.
Well, I'm going to underline them and I'll circle them when they repeat. So 1, 3, and 5, these are all different. That's a function.
Because there are no repeaters,
Right. And
no x repeaters.
there's no x that gives you two different y's, right?
So that must be a function.
Yeah. So what about,
That definitely is a function.
now what about this one? So what am I looking for?
You're repeating x's. So just
1, 2, and 1. Wait a minute. 1, 3, 1, 5.
2 ones in the x slot, so it is not a function.
No fun. No function. Because we have repeating x values with different y values. Okay. So it's very similar to the table. Okay. If the x value repeats with a different y value, with different y values, let me spell right, it is not a function. All right, so this video has been way too long already. I hope that has helped you with your review. You want to make sure you fill it all the way out, hit submit. And this is the format that we're going to do our test. So make sure you've gone through the whole Go Formative and hit submit and show me you can do it all on your own. All right.